it is quite a bit of a Frias book because the whole project is backed up by a much wider scholarly endeavor to edit 1,800 letters of nuns from Kloster Lüne. And we were meeting here when I had my first fellowship in 2015. We started developing this project and thinking about ways to make it accessible to a wider audience, because it's such rich material, and these voices from the past haven't been heard in the way which we thought they earned to be heard of. And the special thing about the nuns in northern Germany is that they aren't an extinct species to be dissected and studied. It's very much a alive community. So later this month I'll be in Kloster Lüne discussing with the women who now live as successors to the medieval nuns in these convents. So our idea was to have the big topics of the life in convents, and I'm not sure whether that's visible from the back there, handouts with a structure as well, and there's the book over there. You're welcome to take a copy and just look at it. We have 6 major chapters, topics such as education, Erziehung, Klausur, enclosure, and for each of the the last chapter is illness and death, and to integrate also into the life of the nuns this aspect of transcendence. And for each of the chapters, we started with a first subchapter, which are anecdotes from a diary of a 15th century nun from Braunschweig. And it's very rare that we hear such an unfiltered voice. She wasn't an abbess or anything, and she might have kept this diary in Latin because her Latin needed a lot of improvement. It's not as good as the Latin of the nuns in Lüne, and she keeps it over years until it suddenly stops just in the year when the plague comes to Braunschweig, and we can assume that she died in the plague. So we used her voice really to introduce each chapter, and we finish each chapter with a visual document from the convents, because through its unbroken tradition, it has meant that we still have an unparalleled richness of everyday objects. So we have the oldest spectacles in the world, from Wienhausen, from the under the floorboards. We have little mandrake roots dressed up as dolls. We have the duty rota for the nuns with Steckschildchen, who was on the flower arranging committee for the week. We have really have this incredibly rich resource which we wanted to bring out. So each chapter, such as enclosure, is framed by the introduction of anecdotes and then closed by the visual content. And so the 6 chapters are enclosure, education, the nuns and their families, die Stränge des Lebens, Musik und Reform, Reformation, Gemeinschaft in Leben und Tod, and then we have quite a number of appendices. And we were very lucky that the publisher allowed us exactly to have whatever we wanted in. So, for example, they designed the end papers as maps of the lower Saxon Klosterlandschaft, and we got 16 pages of color assembled in exactly the way we wanted it. And I thought I would just talk you through one chapter, which is in a way my favorite chapter, the chapter on music, because it integrates elements from education and closure. And you see here a double page from a miscellany from the convent, which showcases how to teach music theory. So I was just told that Mathilde had learned that actually Guidonische Hand still in school today. So you take your fingers and you count chords, and then the nun who was conducting the choir could just point to a finger, and the nuns would know which harmony to sing to the tune. And you see on this detail, which I've enlarged on the left-hand side, how a nun with a corona in the original sense, the crown, teaches a young girl who still has her long hair flowing down her back to read along with a stylus. We have also found a lot of these pointers, the music text. And you can see this here, the girls pictured in the enclosure, the hortus conclusus, with rabbits on a leash. Parade, whether these were literal rabbits or whether it was just really the imagining of the enclosure as the Garden of Paradise, which was the normal element, we don't know. And you see they really put that into practice when you see the books of music that were found also in the convent. So this is a songbook from Wienhausen that combines secular and sacred songs, and that illustrates the anecdote with which we start the chapter on music, namely that for the Leinenschwing, the breaking of flags, the nuns would sing secular songs to make it easier to keep in the rhythm of breaking the flags. And one of these songs is a song about making fun of the clergy, about a donkey who wants to become a priest but hasn't done his Latin homework, so ends up being chased back into the mill to carry the bags. And I thought it would be fun, since this is a song which had repetition built in, so that a nun would start singing it and then everybody would repeat it. We would sing it together with you repeating lines. The problem is that there wasn't a tune for it in the Wienhausen songbook. It must have been a song that everybody knew, so they didn't write this one down. So I asked Franz Josef Holznagel for a tune that would fit from the Rostock songbook. And the first part is fairly easy to find a tune for, because it's the structure that is also used for the Nibelungenlied or Kühenberger Strophe. But then the B part is like a Zwiefacher. It's a bit like a dance. It suddenly goes into a different rhythm. So we had to play around a little bit with the tune. Can everybody see the text? Those who can't see it, there's no excuse, I have handouts. Here, just for Originally there would be a lot of repetition structure. We can see how good you are, whether we build in more. I've highlighted just 2 lines in every stanza to repeat, and you just repeat on exactly the same tune that I sing. Let's see, can I? Slightly small for me. No. Asellus in der Mola, nahm Urlaub von sim Herrn, Präsumserat den Schola, he wollt sin Lexie lern. Magister Bonodius, der Eselsbrak mit Lebe, pax intervoset quies, ich lernte gerne Breve. Pax intervoset quies, ich lernte gerne Breve. Komm, Esel ist dumm, sprich Latein, du bist nicht dumm. Visacus oblivissi, ach, gut gemach, woll ich wünschen all den Dach. Si possem ad epissi. Siscirem alphabetum, von Stund wollt ich studieren, Jus leges et decretum, danach mocht ich plädieren. Pro magna prebenda, das ist eine wunderbare Ausgedichtung. Pro magna prebenda, ich to Chore singe. Dum clamo, vox est ia, der Sack schall mich nicht bringen. Dum clamo, vox est ia, der Sack schall mich nicht bringen. Leer sehr, Esel sehr, du wärst noch wohl ein großer Herr. Mux potest doctrinari, sing, Esels kling, dat war doch gut alle Ding. Si vis presbyterari, si essem tam beatus, dat ich ein Prester wurde, hic esset Deo gratus, de mine misse horde, de in de Predikarem grot afflat wollt ich geben, ut Saccus non portarem, so wollt ich sachte leben. Ut Saccus non portarem, so wollt ich sachte leben. Do, du, de mal so, gut, gar to Chore, singe ho, nam vox est tibi bona, ja, da hat ich gar, wenn ich over missens da, portantur mihi dona, hic missam tum cantavit, do kam der Esel driever, hunc fuste verberavit, wo wurdst du nun entschriever? Cur decipis, sic plebis, wohlher Lob in de Molen, Saccus portare debis, beid Schleppen und de Sohlen. Saccus portare debis, beid Schleppen und de Sohlen. Ach, hätt ich doch, säcke Regen wenden noch, tunc esset mihis wave, vorwahr, werdet ihn zwar, der da schall sehen olden Jahr, pondus portare grave. So this is a cautionary tale. Learn your Latin while you are young and still adaptable. Otherwise, you'll end up with carrying Middlesex. Although this image I've included here is a nice portrayal of a donkey, because this is the donkey who brought wheat to the nuns when there was a hunger. So he got his stained glass window. I'll finish just by pointing out that Eva and I are thinking currently about the English translation of the book. and that the title Unerhörte Frauen really has a triple meaning, which is very hard to convey in English. So unerhört in the sense of not listened to, where would be unheard, and that is the kind of state of scholarship that they haven't been as much listened to, also popular perception. Then unerhört in the sense of remarkable would be unheard of. So we could do in brackets, heard, of in brackets, but that would be very clumsy. And then also we played with having the in bracket in a different color on the cover and on the spine, because they themselves consider themselves as really listened to, namely by God. They saw their voices as very powerful. So I've put the suggestions that have come in so far on a flip chart at the end, and I would ask you, there are text markers, to do a tick with a title you would like, and also to suggest a further title. And some fun ones have already come in. I particularly like by Anne Simon, who is a colleague, a German medievalist in Britain, who came up with unheard and unheardable, but unheardable spelled UNHERD, so they can't be like a flock of sheep being heard. Tim Jackson, another German medievalist from Trinity College Dublin, came up with outrageous habits. So habits, both the habit and the usual way of living. That might be a bit too much in the kind of scandalous section. So what we found was we had really to balance between the Protestant image of the locked away, timid woman, the pious but very boring nun, and on the other side the sexy nun of games. And so when we were writing the book, we went to a film launch by a Dutch director, which turned out to be a lesbian soft porn, where the Marian statue was used as a dildo, and we didn't want to have this kind of image. So outrageous habits might be a bit too much on the sexy nun side. I also really liked, where is it? Yeah, Andreas Henn came up with unconventional conventionals, or cloud from the cloister. So take your pick, but first questions.
Yeah. If you have any questions, thank you for